Welcome back to the Ronnie and Ernie show.
I'm Ron Williams. I'm a sommelier and wine specialist.
And I
And
am Ernie Zahn. I am a filmmaker. We'll get that timing right pretty soon where we're not talking over each other, but we're getting better. Each week we get together and discuss our shared interests and how those shared interests inspire our collaborative works. We've done a few things together. We've been working together since 2010, let's say. Something along
right.
those lines. Our most recent work being the 24th Century Palette. Just a product of passion, right? Our passion for
It's a hobby, yeah.
Our passion for the pinnacle of 90s Star Trek. And so let's get into it. You have
All right.
well, actually, how you doing?
I'm doing
Yeah.
okay. There is construction going on outside my window.
Okay.
I don't know why I said that. There's construction going on outside my window, so if you hear hammering, saws, or anything like that, apologies ahead of time.
Gotcha. Okay. Good looking out. So we have I'm really liking the idea of sharing recipes each episode and kind of just building a conversation around that. And
Okay.
you have something that you wanted to share today. I actually got a chance to make this
I do.
recipe back in January. So
Oh, you made
I
it?
did, yeah. I did it with mushroom and I got Parmigiano Reggiano.
Oh,
So
good. Parmigiano Reggiano
I
is
did a
important.
sort of creamy
Um,
mushroom risotto.
that's
Yeah.
important.
So tell us about it.
It is the bon vivant risotto. The most important thing to note is the type of rice. I use carnaroli specifically. It's an aged carnaroli rice. There are several different types of risotto rice: arborio, carnaroli, violone nano. Carnaroli has a higher starch content, and that's what produces a really creamy risotto. Because you want it creamy. You want it creamy without adding cream. Anybody who adds cream to a risotto, I do not trust. That's
So how do
cheating.
you get the creamy consistency without adding cream? What's the recipe ask for?
What you do is you very slowly over the course of the cooking time, which is anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, you add hot stock. I use chicken stock, preferably homemade, which actually I can send you the recipe for that also we can put up.
Go for it.
It's very simple. You just, vegetables, chicken, water, some
Yep.
salt, and that's it. Um, so should I go through the recipe or
Well,
just
we're going to
talk
share the
about
entire
risotto as
recipe
a... Yeah,
on the
it's
show
on
notes, so I
there.
think I'd rather talk about what exactly is the outcome for this recipe. And can you describe it a little bit? What makes it unique?
So if you do it right, the rice should be al dente. It should still be something to chew. It shouldn't just be mushy and soft.
Yeah.
And it should be really super creamy.
Hmm.
So super creamy. Um, sorry. And yeah, it's one of my favorite, like, because it's great for people who, celiac, gluten intolerance. I eat a lot of rice
Yeah.
anyway. I find rice is just very well tolerated. It's a good carb. Um, and I love it because the recipe I'm putting up that we have is just the base. To it, you can add whatever you want. You can make it asparagus, peas. Um, what's really great is bacon, or if you're really lucky, you can do like guanciale, which is the cheek of
What
the
about
pig.
pancetta?
Um,
No, no.
I mean, you can if you want to. I prefer guanciale, specifically smoked guanciale, because it gives that little bit of smokiness, adds another layer of complexity there. So guanciale and peas are like a really great combination. Um,
So you talked
yeah,
about the
I
specific
love
rice,
risotto. I did.
and I'm
Yeah,
curious to
carnaroli.
know. Well, so I bought some. Can you pronounce it again? Carnaroli. Is that
Carnaroli.
Carnaroli? Um,
Carnaroli.
Carnaroli
Yes.
with roll your R. And
Yeah.
I bought a brand. I bought it in the north end of Boston, which is a famous Italian neighborhood. If I wasn't somewhere where I could access an Italian neighborhood, what are some of the, I guess, suggestions you have on tracking something like this down? How accessible is it?
You can have it in a day if you just order it on Amazon. The brand I use is Acquarello.
Mm.
Um, we can link to that also. That's they age their carnaroli, and the aging process actually helps it um, be more creamy and stay al dente. Like it does something to the
Right.
starch. That aging process. It's fascinating, but it is the best risotto rice I have ever used.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to cooking it again. And we'll put the recipe up on the site.
Yep.
What kind of pairings would you usually have with something like this?
In terms of wine,
Yeah, well, in terms of wine, but also what about non-alcoholic pairings? What are some good flavors that complement it?
anything. I mean, you can put it as a side to a meat
Right.
dish. Like a very common pairing is
Yep.
ossobuco. Usually it's served on a bed of risotto. Um, Chicken cutlets go really great. I can do it with veal, pork. I've never done it with steak, but I suppose you conceivably could do it with steak. I generally prefer potatoes with beef, though. I don't know, it just seems to work a little
Uh-huh.
better. Um, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna have a look at that recipe again because I cooked it by itself, and I definitely want to try it as something that I make as a side.
As a
Yeah.
side dish for
Yeah.
something, yeah. Well, because you can do it like, you know how pasta is considered like a first course, and then generally meat and fish and stuff like that are second
Right.
courses or main courses. You can do the same with risotto. It could be the first course to something bigger later, or you can do it as a
Right.
side dish. And I like it both
How often
ways.
do you make it?
Probably about once a week.
Wow.
I make it at least once a week,
And this is
just because I'm eating rice almost
this is
every
the
day anyway.
elevated
So
version of your daily rice and lentils experience. This
kind
is how you
of.
move over to a nicer rice experience from your rice and lentils. So let's talk about that rice and
Yeah.
lentils recipe for a second too. We don't necessarily need to put that up on the show notes just because I feel like that's something that would be better saved for an episode where we're really getting into good recipes for people who have the similar, let's say, GI conditions that you and I have.
Conditions. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I cook it every day too. It's pretty simple. It's just, what is it, half a cup of rice, half a cup of lentils.
I mean, the ratio is up to you. If you want to do it 1-to-1 rice to lentils, sometimes I used to do like 2-to-1 lentils to rice, so there was a little more
Right.
protein. You can vary it depending on your taste, but it's lentils, rice, water, salt at its simplest
I
form.
do olive oil too.
That I usually do that if I'm serving it. When I serve it, I put the olive oil.
Oh.
Man, there is.
So it's not,
I don't know if you can hear that.
I can hear it a little bit.
It's getting pretty loud.
Well, I mean,
it's getting pretty loud.
you're on a shotgun mic, right? It's directional. So
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully you hear it more than the mic does. But
I do hope
you
so.
add the olive
The
oil in
entire floor is shaking.
after it's ready to serve.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Why you boil the oil?
I usually put it in the water when I boil it. Is that bad?
Oh no, I find that because it's gonna separate, so it's just gonna be on like the top layer.
But isn't that what you're doing when
Right, it
you
doesn't
add it
get
in anyway, or you
incorporated
mix it
in.
in?
I mix it in when it's cooked and then I drizzle it. I like to mix it in so it's well
Is there
incorporated.
any dish where there's
Extra virgin
value to
Sicilian
put
olive
the
oil.
oil in to cook the thing? I mean, with the exception of anything that's being done in a skillet, like
I don't know
soups.
because the thing is like I don't subscribe to the adding oil to pasta water either because it doesn't do anything.
Okay, well, here's the thing. It does do
Oil
something
and water,
if
you know?
you're using non-traditional pasta. Like if you're the type of person who can't do semolina for one reason or another. If you're doing chickpea pasta or one of those other kinds of protein-based pastas that you can
Hmm.
get in different places. For example, quinoa pasta. First of all, you have to be
Yeah.
very careful about the timing of it. You can make pretty decent pasta that's quinoa or chickpea or one of those things. I know that's out there, and I know you're probably rolling your eyes right now. But the trick to make it more consistent with traditional pasta is that the olive oil one is cooked with the pasta, but then I usually add another tablespoon once it's through the colander or the strainer, just so it can move around a little more freely, because that stuff sticks together like some kind of analogy that I could come up with. Uh,
Like glue.
that would be one. Yeah.
There you go. Uh, um,
But
After it's cooked, I can
yeah,
understand it, but how like every single like test kitchen, whatever, like science, food science says adding the oil to the water does nothing.
hmm. But what happens to it when it's being boiled?
It it doesn't like oil and water don't go together,
Right, but you're
so it's not going to
stirring.
get incorporated in any way.
Okay. So even though if you're stirring and you're actively mixing it,
Yeah, well, what's going to happen? If it does get on the pasta, it's not going to be absorbed. It's going to wash off immediately because you have a gallon of water, presumably, and a tablespoon of oil. Unless you're boiling it in oil,
yeah,
it just doesn't. I don't
I
subscribe to
guess it's
that.
just a
It,
superstition
it
then.
just seems
Or
completely
it's a placebo or
ineffective.
something like that. I just think it's doing something to
Yeah.
help it non-stick.
Once it's cooked,
Yeah.
absolutely put some on so that toss it in oil when it's
Yeah.
cooked so that it doesn't stick.
That's my pro tip for
While it's
the
boiling,
gluten-free pasta
yeah,
consumers is put the olive oil
there you go.
in the cooked non-semolina pasta. The quinoa, the chickpea. Oh my god, the black bean pasta doesn't hold together at all. It just turns into mush. I've never been able to figure that out. But quinoa pasta, you have to make it a little al dente and add some olive oil, and it works quite well. We can have an entire podcast talking about the taste and and all that stuff, and and we
I'll
can have a
reserve my
debate.
judgments for after I
I'm
taste
just
it.
talking about it functionally working the way pasta does with sauces and stuff like that, and also just storing it after if you have anything left over. You need to add the olive
I don't
oil
really do leftover pasta.
because of the flavor.
Pasta for me has to be like no, just the texture, the consistency, everything. Like if I make a pasta sauce, I'll save the sauce
Right.
certainly, fine. But then I'll just make pasta again and reheat the sauce. That I find is much more
Do you
effective.
ever do box
I
pasta?
would rather. What do you mean?
Well, I mean,
Like pre-made
yeah.
pasta, like dried pasta?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
How often do you make it from
I
scratch?
like. That's a once every 2 to 3 months probably, unless I'm getting hired to make pasta
Right.
or something. If somebody wants me to cook them pasta, sure, I'll do
Right.
it. Um, if I'm making lasagna or tortellini or something like that, yeah, I want my own pasta. I want to make it because I want to control what goes into it. Because I'm usually make like for lasagna, I want it green. I want it
Yeah.
spinach, and it's hard to find good spinach pasta, so I make it myself.
So let me ask you something. What are you
Hmm.
currently drinking? What's something that you tried this week?
Wine wise or
Anything. What's
anything?
anything now that came in through Cap Cork and Cellar, or anything that you've tried for
Oh,
the first time this week or this month?
so I tried a Nero d'Avola from
Tell me.
Sicily that we just got in. It is actually, hang on.
Are you pulling it up?
Yeah, I need to pull it up because I need to make sure I get this
Okay.
right. It's called Marabino, and it's a Rosso di Contrada, which comes from Siracusa, which is south east Sicily. So on the same side of the island as my family is from, just a little further south. Nero d'Avola grown in clay limestone soil. Um, it is an unbelievable red wine. It it floored me. It was like it was just an incredible
Just
experience.
by itself,
It
not
was
with anything.
complex. No, no, I didn't even pair it with anything. This was just like a sample we had, a
Right.
bottle. So, um, yeah,
What's the
incredible.
price range on it?
Absolutely incredible. It's around
It's not bad.
20-ish. Might find it for a little less, might find it for a little more. That's usually where I like to stick. That's the sweet spot for wines. Paying more than like $50, you're not paying for the wine anymore. If a wine is more than 50, you're generally paying for the marketing.
Hmm.
It's a label, it's a name at that point, because the juice is not going to be worth any more than that anyway. The most expensive grapes in the world are still just grapes,
Right.
you know.
Well, then I have a question about
Um,
vintages. When something is aged
yeah,
beyond its label,
yeah.
what are the instances where that significantly increases value, and the instances where it just turns it into garbage?
Generally, a winery, a winemaker will age the wine themselves. So, like, it'll either be in an oak barrel before it's bottled, or it'll be bottled and then aged in the bottle before its release, or a combination of the two. And so that when it hits the market, it's pretty much ready to be consumed. Um, Wines that are intended to be aged and cellared, like this is I'm selling you this with the understanding that you are not going to drink it now. You are going to lay it down in a cellar for at least a decade. That's very rare. That's a very small percentage of wine that's
So
produced.
when movies and shows
Very small.
have like, this bottle was sitting in Thomas Jefferson's cellar in 1742, and it had to have been agonizingly controlled and monitored by 6 to 7 generations of human beings in order for it to have any kind of value in 2020. Is that the case?
Correct.
And can an
Correct.
independent person do that, or do you have to have like a proper facility? I don't even know. Like, is that a complete misconception when in like movies and shows they talk about like these vintages that are from like famous people who've been long dead? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, it depends on the wine. Honestly, it depends on the wine. The majority of the time, there is no, like, it's going to be dead. The wine is going to be completely so past maturity that it's not going to have anything left. It'll just be completely unraveled and there won't be anything to it. You can still drink it,
Right.
certainly. I don't think it would be an enjoyable experience. Um, White wines in particular don't generally age very well. Anything in a screw cap is not intended to be aged.
Right. Were there any
Um,
18th century screw
Screw cap
caps?
is just not. Yeah, no. But like when you consider wines that are that
Yeah.
old, really the only thing that can last that long is something. It either has to be extremely high in alcohol, extremely high in sugar, extremely high in acidity, or extremely high in tannins, or some combination of all four of those
Can you
things.
imagine?
So like,
Yeah. I maybe it's just because I went to school for history and I kind of have a weird like obsession with trying to connect to things that have not existed for a long time, or some way find a bridge to that. But I just think about if you could drink a glass of wine from the 18th century, I'm sure it's more about the value than it is about the experience. Like, I mean, I don't you'd have to tell me, but is there such like I don't know if it's like that much better than any other wine you can get, or if it's just that it's so unique and rare. Assuming it's
it's probably
being
a
handled
combination.
well for these all these years, and it's actually
If
a
it's
good
if it was
bottle.
stored properly,
But
if it was stored properly,
I just think about you're drinking a grape that was picked by somebody who hasn't been alive since before so many world events, right? The American
yeah,
Civil War, the Spanish flu, uh, the building of the Eiffel Tower, all these things that did not even exist that we're just used to, that
yeah.
we take for granted as just this thing that happened, and it just constantly in our mind, but doesn't have the same gravity to it or whatever. The idea that it was picked before that stuff even happened. Is there like a world famous, most known aged something that's never been opened that everybody talks about?
Um, Not to my knowledge. I mean, there's a lot of so like for example, vintage port can last that long. Port from Portugal, is a fortified wine. It's generally higher in alcohol, higher in sugar, and so it can keep for hundreds of years
Wow.
because it's so well preserved. So there is 100-year-old port. That's a thing.
100-year-old. Okay.
100-year-olds, like I assume there's port from the 1800s as well. Um,
Can I give you a homework assignment?
Yeah,
Next
sure.
week, can you do a little research and find out what the oldest known available vintage of something is? I'm just curious to know, like, obviously that it's kept under the right conditions and stuff like that, like something that's drinkable, and
Yeah.
what that oldest thing is. I wonder what it is.
It'll probably be. I mean, champagne can last.
Hmm.
Fortified wines like port, marsala, madeira, sherry, um, and like dessert wines like. You ever heard of TBA?
No.
Ice wines. TBA is Trockenbeeren Auslese. It's German dessert
Das
wine,
Beste.
where the grapes are picked like as late as possible, so they're like raisins, and they're usually affected by this fungus called botrytis, so
Oh,
that like
schmeckt gut,
concentrates
ja?
the flavors even more. Schmeckt gut. Deutsches Wein.
Deutsches Wein.
Yeah, Deutsches Wein.
That would be a good T-shirt. Deutsches Wein.
Deutsches Wein. I'm sure there's got to be somebody that made a T-shirt
Yeah.
like that. But I would totally make that
Yeah.
T-shirt. Yeah. It's old things like that. Because the age is what, not just, it's not the novelty of
Okay,
it.
I can definitely hear.
It's you can definitely hear that, right?
Except over my headphones, it sounds.
Oh my God.
It sounds like
Wow.
someone from Queens blowing their nose.
No, this is oh my God. This is bad.
No, it sounds like
All
Peter
right,
Griffin
well-
blowing his nose.
It's very loud.
Yeah. So I got one more thing.
This is probably a good opportunity. Yeah.
Let's close out the show in a little bit.
Yeah. Please. I can't.
I'm headed to New Orleans tomorrow.
Oh,
for
tomorrow.
5 days. Are you
Well,
still headed
safe
to
travels.
Mexico?
Is it business or pleasure? Yeah.
How are you feeling about travel right now?
I don't know. I'm gonna take my chances. I think I'll be fine. It'll be
And
fine.
here, I had to work through a little bit of paranoia on my end. It's partially because I'm a hypochondriac, and also partially that I don't want to spread anything.
I don't want to catch anything
No,
either.
I mean, I don't want to catch anything. I don't want to spread anything. And honestly, I think the thing I fear most is being able to, or is being put in a position where I have to stop doing what I want to do. I think I realized I'm a summer person. I might have seasonal depression. Do you ever get like that in the
Me
winter?
too. Oh yeah.
There's
Oh
something
yeah.
about when the temperature increases. I feel like my body finally activates after being dormant.
Yep. It's like
If
hibernation.
I could go under for 3 or 4 months every year, that would probably be... I'd probably be twice as productive in the summer.
Yeah. And just sleep through the
Is
winter.
this construction happening
bear.
at your place, or is this happening by a neighbor?
Yeah. No. I am looking at one of the construction workers that is right outside
You're
my
awkwardly
window.
making eye contact and talking into your
Thankfully, there
microphone.
hasn't been much eye contact. Yeah.
All right. Well, I will hopefully have something to share from my trip to New Orleans. I'm doing my best not to overthink.
No spoilers.
Overthink this. I can't spoil anything because I have no idea what's going to happen.
Oh, okay.
But I
alright,
picked up a backpack
we'll see.
because I've been in New Mexico for 5 years and I haven't had one. I got a 30-liter backpack, so now clothes, camera, everything, just one bag on the plane. It feels terrific.
Except, for your spine.
Oh no, have you ever used one of these like 30, 40-liter bags before? They're they're built in a way where
Never.
the straps are positioned differently and the whole thing's positioned like, I don't know, you
For backpacking.
exactly. I mean, I don't know if you were. I my first job out of not out of high school, before I even got into high school, I remember I had to get special like permission to work underage, but I started working as a golf caddy, and that was
Ah.
oppressive. But I would sometimes carry a bag that was ergonomically designed, where the position of the strap and where the bulk of the weight was, that it was manageable, because that's a pretty laborious job. It's anywhere between 35 and 45 pounds, which doesn't sound like a ton of weight, but if you're doing it for 3.5 to 4 hours and it's open sky, 95 degrees, it'll weigh on you. And I noticed that with the seasoned caddies, the first things they would do when they get a break is not water. My instinct was water. Their instinct was peanuts because they were running out of salt in their body.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'd be
interesting.
looking at them. It's like, I can't believe you're fucking doing that right now. I would die if I ate a peanut right now. But they were right to, because
The
exactly.
electrolytes.
So they would have salt first,
Mm.
and then they would make time for water just before they started moving again. And I would go for the water every time,
Mm.
and it would kick my ass. Um, but
Not good.
yeah, backpack. Look into it.
I'll take a
Yeah.
look.
Well, this is the
Well,
most efficient show we've had
yeah.
so far,
Yeah.
and I would
Nice and
invite
tight.
you to play us out.
All right. The Ronnie and Ernie Show is a joint production of Triello Story.
One more time. Take
Let me
two.
try that again. Okay, take two. The Ronnie and Ernie Show is a joint production of Triello Storytelling Company and The Bon Vivant. Our show is now available on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you like what we're
If you like
hearing,
what we're hearing,
I
which is
should
the same
really
thing that you're
practice
hearing,
this.
then
if
we're
you
both enjoying the show.
that's what it's all about,
Yeah,
isn't it?
continue.
If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're hearing, then commenting, subscribing, and reviewing means that it will only get better. Recipes, projects, or anything we didn't have enough time to cover on today's show will be up on our blogs, which I now have on my website as well.
Fantastic.
So triello.org/blog, and then just thebon-vivant.com. And I just linked to your blog. There's no point in having it in two
Perfect.
places.
Sounds good. Well, have a wonderful week. I hopefully will come back with stories from New Orleans. Think on
Oh
what
yeah,
recipe
looking
you'd like
forward
to
to it.
share next week. And
All
we'll
right.
see you next week.
Yeah. Ciao,
Bye
ciao.
bye.